Yeah.
Oh no, you just put us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, let's see where we are now. Okay. Got it.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Annette. Hey, Maria.
I think she's on mute.
Yes, I think so too. I hope you can hear me. Okay, that's all we got for now.
All right.
Hello, everybody. It's Maria.
Hi.
Since we don't have a forum, we're just going to have a discussion. We're not going to vote on anything. We're not going to vote on the last meeting's minutes. We will go over and talk about some items that are on the agenda that really we needed to work on anyway and weren't ready for a vote. So does anybody have any questions on that? Do we have any public comments on Zoom?
Nobody
Okay.
that wants to join you.
All right. So we talked about the disability survey issues. And Janet was nice enough to send it out so that we could tell her what we thought about it. And I think it's really pretty good. I do have some suggestions. In question number 1, I would list those things: parking lot, garage, facility, sidewalk, etc. I would list them A, B, C, D, E.
Okay.
And then on question number 2, we want people to rate it 1 to 5. I would put 5 blocks out there on each line. Obviously the open-ended, you need to give them enough room to write. And do you want to, we need to think about if we want to make the open-ended, do they have to respond to something? My personal belief is I hate that.
I do too. I sincerely hate that when I'm asked to.
You know, you want me to do a survey, I'll do your stupid survey, however.
Can I make it? I'm sorry. Can I make a comment?
Certainly.
As we're going through, I think we may want to take a look at some of the vocabulary to make it as clear and simple as possible. So on question number 3, what locations do you think should be studied for inspiration? I'm not quite sure. Maybe we could say more directly, should be studied as examples. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It does. There's obviously some places in the city that are very well accessibly equipped. And there's some places in the city, to include
Right.
a lot of city properties, that are not well accessibly equipped.
Can we go back up to question 2?
And maybe we should actually add another question that says, which ones do you think are inspiring and which ones do you think are, come up with a nice word for disgusting, Janet?
Inaccessible. Okay, if we're going to go question by question on number 2, can we refer to that as the Avondale Business District on Savannah Highway?
You'd like to just edit to include business district on Savannah Highway?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Avondale is too confusing there. Because I know people know that that's okay.
That's a good suggestion. I think what's going to be important is we know what we mean, but we need to make sure that we spell it out so everybody will know what we mean, so it isn't ambiguous at all. So I like the idea, the Avondale Business District on Savannah Highway.
Yeah, me too.
Then on number 4, I would just add lines to write your order, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.
Well, and I think that we may see that when she actually puts it in the Survey Monkey. I think that the formatting, yeah.
And then number 7, we might want to list the different technology equipments and just put boxes.
Yeah.
with them.
That's what I'm going to do.
And
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear.
I didn't quite hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. To list the different accessibility devices with check boxes beside them, so you
Yes.
can check all that you use.
Yeah.
Like wheelchair or trilogy,
Right. Right,
paint,
right.
Walker.
And I think going back to the very beginning, you don't want to weigh people down with the questions, but I know that nowadays you ask, you kind of front end some of those quick questions about what zip code do you live in?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, do you want to know what zip code they live in, what zip code they work in? Do you want to know anything about age or race? I mean, those are just things to think about. You may want to look at some other surveys as examples. You don't want to weigh them down with a whole bunch of questions. I think 3 or 4. I mean, but
Well,
I definitely want to know what zip code they live in. Or work in.
The disaggregated demographic data standards, the very last line, that will include the zip code.
Yeah.
That's what the city apparently puts on all. They
Okay, we want to be
some,
consistent. Perfect.
or some version on all.
Yeah, as I look at the survey, it looks like to me that someone can complete the survey in 5 to 10 minutes easily.
Oh, yeah.
And you never want a survey that takes over.
I've got it with 100 questions. It's so annoying.
Alex, have you had a chance to look at the survey yet?
I looked at it briefly. I agree with keeping it short and maybe just having a couple demographic questions at the end. Just so that way we can just get just some idea of what people are looking for. I don't know if we want to know specific disabilities in this one or not, but
No, I don't think it should be specific disabilities. That's why I was hoping we could use the equipment as a stand-in for different disabilities.
okay.
I'm on a committee with the ALS Association. It's called Focus. And one of the things we just did was an equipment survey. So I've got a really good list of
Oh, good.
all of it. There's probably about 15 items.
Can you just send me that list?
Maybe.
A snapshot, pretty please. I don't have 4750. I'm not paying here.
Yeah.
What happy hour after we get done here?
Can we ask, we want to ask, like, is there one emergency management question we want to ask? Is there anything?
What would you like to ask?
Well, I would like to know what would help them in emergency management. Is there 1 or 2 questions that would help them?
Okay.
But
Like, do you have concerns about your safety in an emergency
Yeah,
situation?
I would rather, I like the idea about talking about emergency management. But I think it would be nice to get a survey from the emergency management folks.
But I feel like there's 1 or 2, I think we can still kind of open that door a little bit with just 1 or 2 questions about, well, Annette, what would be a question that you think would be helpful? Because you've been at the shelters and.
Oh, yeah, and boy, do I have a story from this.
Well,
from my
now,
day.
let's not go into all that right now, but.
No, it's a new one.
A new one. Oh my gosh.
You always have a new story.
Well, I feel like the secret shopper.
Well, let's all think about that, but just I mean, are people really aware of, I have some concerns about whether people know how to evacuate, where to go, and would they evacuate?
That seems like a reasonable question. Marie, do you have any additional thoughts? You haven't spoken up.
My thoughts as I look over it was just like making sure the clarity of the questions itself. That's the main thing that stood out to me.
Mhm.
So with y'all's permission, I'll take back these suggestions, rewrite, edit, and send it out again by email. Is that okay?
Okay, I have a couple of additional comments, if I may.
Please, I love your comments.
Yeah.
Okay, again, I think we need to be, rather than using the $25 vocabulary words, we need to simplify to make it as accessible to all in terms of, so we're all clear.
Yep.
So when I look at question 4, for example, prioritizing, B through E talks about proximity. Can we say something like closeness to transit stops, closeness to public parks, as opposed to proximity? I'm just thinking about who is this going to be getting sent out to?
Good.
And
Right. That's exactly what I'm referring to with that vocabulary. I totally agree.
And that's, so the same thing when we talk about item F, socioeconomic underserved communities. What's the better way of putting that?
That one I don't know because I've been hearing that one for years since I've been here. And I guess it's because one of the commercials I listened to with one of the doctors that serve those communities. So I guess because I've always known what that meant. So I'm trying to see what would be a better way to say that.
Well,
But
I'm wondering if we deep six socioeconomic and just put underserved communities.
underserved definitely says it pretty much all.
All
Mhm.
right. And then when we go down to question 6, what features would make it equitably accessible? I can't even say it,
Right.
without
Mhm.
stumbling. Can we just put what would make a parking facility accessible to all?
All, exactly.
And then I have 2 other, I know we're trying to keep it short, sweet, but 2 other questions that to be consider about adding. One would be, I would like to give additional suggestion, comments, feedback, and allow any other comments to be added that may not be included in the questions here. And then perhaps having an additional thing about, I would like to become involved with the work of the commission or making Charleston more accessible, to see if anybody else would like to become personally involved.
Good. I like that. I need that. Okay. Anything else that we should include? Do you think we should include in number 2? Are there any other areas that we should ask about people's opinions?
Just a second, let me go up to 2.
Sure.
You probably put other category,
Okay.
so there's a section that we haven't done about this area.
It seems to be weighted to Charleston to downtown, but that's.
Could we do one whole question about parks?
That's what I was wondering. How many parks does the city have?
3,264,000.
That's approximately right.
Yes.
And how many parks do we take care of and keep up? Nobody has
The
to say,
64.
"Oh, I will."
And I know they're going for the referendum this time.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. They've we haven't heard very much.
Oh, Daisy's in the waiting room. Sorry.
Who's in the waiting room?
Hi, Daisy. Daisy is muted and not seen, but she's there.
Okay,
Yes, because with the parks, of course, we have the city parks, county parks, and the state park. So that's a lot, which is great. It's just identifying.
Stacy can't see what she's doing.
Can Daisy understand the ASL translation? Should we move for better vision? Yeah.
there's no answer.
No answer apparently.
I don't see Daisy's box. Is she on?
It's on my screen. I don't know where. Oh, it's because she doesn't have her camera on. You don't see Maria's either.
That's it.
She's got. Good see.
So if we split question 2 into areas and then make the next one parks.
We want to think about doing more than one survey.
We can certainly do one later. I mean,
What would the question about parks be about?
So I said the number question 2, we have only Hampton Park. Well, we have the West Ashley Greenway. But I said, should we make a separate question about parks?
Well, that's a tough one because you got
so
a gazillion of them.
6 million, yeah.
I think if we addressed it in terms of what do you like about parks in the city of Charleston that, or what can be included to parks? So it needs to be about each individual ones or.
you know, waterfront.
Instead of listing the
Instead of
whole thing, yeah.
It's so many of the parks are just passive parks that
They're pocket parks. I mean, there's just, we're starting.
Or you can do like, do you visit the Charleston parks, and then if so, why and why not? I don't know.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Which parks do you visit? Because I'm not sure that any of these passive parks get visited.
I
should say-
I personally know that the Brittle Bank has accessibility issues.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and that's a lovely, lovely park that has real. I mean,
It's,
they've actually let the walkway get covered over in grass.
well, I know it's just depending on the ramp there, and getting onto the piers a little bit, if you, over time, just because of the high tide.
Well, and the flooding is coming, the flooding's gonna be what it's gonna be, but yeah.
Well, and then also there's Riverfront Park. And the issue is if there's been a really strong rainstorm within a couple of days of an event, it's difficult for wheelchairs to ride around on the grass because you can, get dug into the mud.
And do you mean Riverfront Park in North Charleston?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's not our
But that's
jurisdiction.
okay. I get it. I think that it's very difficult for me, and I stay on top of it. The waterfront, which is not riverfront, but waterfront, which is not dissimilar,
True.
also gets
Yeah.
very confusing. So yeah,
And the West Ashley Greenway is a transportation corridor. It's in a park.
it's not a park, but we maintain it like a park. So we'll leave that in the
Yeah, what's his name? The dock down there, not Hampton. That here at the end of the West Ashley Greenway.
That's not the West Ashley Greenway. That's a different Greenway.
that's
On the old railroad bed.
yeah, that's the one that goes over by
Because that was with the grant.
yeah, Bender Street Park or something. There's a different park. That's an amazing
That's a great facility.
dock.
Yeah, the dock is neat. When we ask about
Ashley Hill
parks,
or Berryville, I'm not sure which one.
we should say you or your children. Attending, if we ask the question about attending parks,
Why did we have a Broad Street on there?
I'm sorry?
Why was Broad Street on here?
Well, it's like King Street.
But again, I mean, the city of Charleston is on Daniel Island, the city of Charleston is on Johns Island, it's on James Island, it's in West Ashley, it's, I'm not sure that Broad Street is any more important than any other street.
Well, I'm not sure that it is either, but it is a street that's destination, like King Street. That's what.
I mean,
And
how many
Calhoun
people
Street.
here ever walk on Broad Street? I mean, I can't,
If you go into City Hall or.
Yeah.
Something like
I
that.
mean, seriously, how many people, I mean, I don't know many people that go downtown and that walk on Broad Street, I just don't.
There's tourists that have.
We're not
traveled-
tourists.
Well, even I've traveled from, Like
All the
market.
lawyers walk on Broad Street.
They do, but my point is that how is that any more important than Savannah Highway?
Nobody
Or-
said it's more important than Savannah Highway. We've got Savannah Highway is number.
Or Sam Rittenberg, which is a freak show of walking out there, but, I just.
I am open to other sites, if you will.
And Calhoun Street, why is
Bill
Calhoun Street?
Korea.
Collins one of the major things.
Yeah.
Like I used to drive.
So
a
is
chair.
Savannah Highway.
Yeah,
So is Sam Rittenberg.
but I used to drive in a wheelchair from College Post and USC.
Yeah, you have, remember, you have a ton of kids.
But this is way too focused on the peninsula. It's just way too focused on the peninsula. I mean, 50% of the people live in West Ashley in the city of
I'm
Charleston.
open to putting the other places down. You just have to tell me what they are.
I guess my concern is mentioning specific streets to this student.
What I think about these other places is we have the College of Charleston with a lot of kids that are living downtown, that are walking and biking to class. And just like you were saying, Alex, you know.
And I
If you,
think we, sorry to make the joke.
no, go ahead.
I think we're focusing a lot on downtown because I think that's sort of where the majority of people come to do things, to shop, to go to the medical district and those sorts of things. Yes, the other areas are.
It's so interesting because I just don't. I avoid downtown because of the flooding and traffic and parking. That's interesting to me because I avoid it like the plague. I try to go.
Yeah.
Outside. It's
But I think that some of the downtown needs to be included because that's where so many of the events of the city happen, whether you're going to the Gilliard, whether you're going to, the farmer's market at Marion Square, whether you have to go into the hospital district for medical, that's kind of.
And I think even downtown just has more, I think it has more work to do in terms of accessibility. With sidewalks, with buildings, there's fewer accessible parking areas, I think, downtown than there would be in West Ashley. Things are more spread out in the other areas, so downtown is just a lot more congested and trying to make sure that everyone can access it as easily as possible.
When we do the demographic question about the zip code where the survey taker lives, perhaps we could include a question that asks about how they would rate the accessibility of the area where they live. I know that's kind of a broad question, but
And then I think the zip code question will help us sort of determine where the populace of people who want or need the accommodations or
yes, definitely.
that'll help us direct our focus a little bit more.
One of the other things we really need to look at, and I hate to say this because it drives me nuts, but if Joe Schmuckatelli from St. Petersburg, Florida is walking downtown and trips and falls in that sidewalk, the city's insurance is going to give that man $5,000. Plus pay his medical bills. And that just means next year's insurance is going up and up.
Well, a lot of that's
So-
Bluestone, yeah.
So a lot of that stuff down there that's not accessible needs to be accessible. We have severe problems at the MLK pool, and I've told God and everybody about them. And the city refuses to fix them, and somebody's going to fall and get hurt.
At the sidewalk. On the sidewalks leading into the pool.
They have such a mess with that construction of the old school. And don't get me going on that. I don't know what you're gonna do with parking with the extra cars, but, oh, on sidewalks. Well, I was driving down East Bay coming here today.
Okay.
They're putting in a nice new sidewalk all the way down East Bay. On the right hand side of the street as you head towards Charleston.
On Morrison Drive, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, Morrison Drive, East Bay, all the same thing. I live West Ashley.
I understand.
By Morrison Loops.
Yeah.
Some of the sidewalks have paths that are existing paths that go to the street, so there's no curb cut. And of course, there's no crosswalk there. So to me, that 6 or 8 inch concrete path ought to be eliminated. Because somebody in a wheelchair is gonna try to take that path, and then there's a curve there.
Is the project finished?
That part's been there for years.
Okay, sometimes, because I ran into that one time where they actually forgot to take out the curb. It
Yeah,
was-
no,
Yeah.
they're still doing that. They haven't put down the rumble plates or anything yet. But
Now, where, I'm just, by Martha Lou's is where you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's on the right side as you're coming into town?
yeah, you should come into town, and it's old parking lot. It's not parking lot that they just put in. Or not parking lot, sidewalk.
Okay, I'll get that.
And there was 3 or 4 or 5 of them that, what it was, I guess probably years ago, was there was a building or a store or restaurant there, and you could park on the street back then. And so you could go out and get your car. Now you have to Uber downtown.
There's going to be a whole new sidewalk across the street south of QG, I think. I'm not quite sure about that. But there's going to be a whole new sidewalk that has not been there. And I thought that's what you were making. I thought
No.
they'd started doing that work.
All right, so let's get back on track. So we all have added a few hundred questions to Janet. We've not voted on any of them because we'll be in trouble for that. I'm gonna get Janet a list of different ADA equipment that people use: wheelchairs, rollers, power wheelchairs, ramps, bypass, trilogies, feeding tubes, canes, walkers, service animals. Because in this business, I guess all of that stuff's important.
And what are these devices?
Medical devices
Okay.
or assistive devices that
Assistive devices.
people use.
Cool.
And someone may take it like feeding tubes. I'm not sure we need, but some.
I don't think we need to accommodate feeding tubes.
No. Trilogies,
What are trilogies?
Is
Is that a scooter?
a person with ALS doesn't expel carbon dioxide. So very well. So if you put them in the hospital and give them 100% oxygen and walk away, you can come back in about an hour and they'll be dead.
Yeah.
Because you can't get rid of that. So a trilogy provides carbon dioxide along with the oxygen as the person breathes it. It's not really a BiPAP machine, because a BiPAP machine just provides oxygen.
Would a trilogy need to be accommodated in any way in a public area?
It may need to be plugged in.
Okay,
Now, they are battery operated, but I forgot to plug mine in. Gee, I'm at this concert. Can you help me?
I feel like we've done that in this building.
Yeah,
for,
Joe
um,
makes arrangements.
or power chairs, or
Yeah.
just that was the plan. So,
So that's the only thing you would have to do with them.
okay.
And can I just, is there a way of asking Daisy? Is there anything that should be added to the list that might make the various questions and areas more accessible to her. In terms of maybe, you know, how, like the flashing crosswalk signs and stuff like that. Because we're very heavy on the mobility aids and kind of light on the other.
How many voice activated crosswalks do we have in Charleston? We have none, and that's as needed, but they're not nearly as expensive as
There's a couple of them.
I think it's on the Quest. Yeah,
I think the one in Broad,
When you say voice activated, how does that work?
it tells you when you can cross.
APS,
Yeah.
audible pedestrian signal.
I know that there's some in Mount Pleasant,
which one, yeah, with any voice ones.
but because in Mount Pleasant there were a couple of people that requested that, and of course the city accommodated that because they were vision impaired or vision. Is that?
Yeah.
Vision impaired.
That's right. They, was it last month that I handed out the new, there's the new public right of way guidelines I handed out last week with, and we're supposed to put on all, oh, look at you, we're supposed to do all audible.
They are, yeah, because I knew the cost had gone way down. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay. Moving forward and our on request.
Okay, I will edit and submit back to y'all for your edits. We do have a Survey Monkey, Alex, that Tracy knows how to work, so. Tracy's gonna work it.
Oh, it's not hard. It's actually kind of fun trying to, yeah, it's actually kind of fun.
So my question is, when we use Survey Monkey, do we pay the monkey in bananas per hour or per job?
That's a classified answer.
I got no idea.
Did we decide on, are we gonna create QR codes for this survey for people?
I will ask.
And I know you can email the link as well, but for those, if you see them in
That's
person,
right, you want the QR codes.
Yeah.
Which is a good idea.
My dad has them. I mean,
I
everybody.
can figure them out half the time.
it takes like 10 tries.
I know. Great idea.
But if I find an 8-year-old kid,
Right. That'll make it easy.
Okay, thank you all very much for your input. I just so you know that I have also added in for number 2, the College of Charleston, MUSC, the VA hospital, and Maybank Highway, the market, and East Bay Street. The streets where we see most of the tourists in Charleston are King, Broad, and East Bay. That's just where they mostly are.
And let's give up the one
Yeah, I don't-
plan, so we don't need to click my volume.
Can you
Yeah, probably it's whole-
add Central Malls that was like,
it's not.
I thought about that too, but then we're starting to get on the private property.
It's not ours.
Is it in the county?
No, it's, I mean, Citadel Mall is a private property. Yeah,
and it's what's his name that flipped all the houses.
he sold it.
He did.
Oh, that's right, he did.
I can put it in
I
for
was,
information purposes.
I was trying to think of this where people congregate West Ashley besides.
Yeah, there's not a lot of walking West Ashley except around Citadel Mall.
Yeah.
And Avondale. I can't think of any other places really.
But like I lived in Charleston, but like East Fairview, little greenway, walkway. Like
And I don't know that much about that area,
Yes.
but I think they tried to make it more accessible there.
it's really nice. And I kind of want to put a better crosswalk button over in that area of East Fairview 61, similar to what we did at Magwood in 61. So I might reach out to you, but I'm Janet. But other than that, that West Ashley, that side of West Ashley is good.
That's, aren't those county roads? Because
They're state actually.
Interesting.
they're state, because one of the things,
But yeah,
We can get, and if we have, everybody says that on the survey, we can say, we ran the survey. And the
Yeah.
survey says,
Ooh, we can go on Family Feud.
there you go. Okay, thank you very much. And when it comes back again, I will encourage you again to edit again. You know, don't, it's not gonna be fun. So we get it done.
Alex, did you hear the dates we talked about for November and December?
I heard, yeah.
Okay.
Did Daisy and Maria and that here?
Yes.
Okay,
November 17th and December 15th,
Okay,
and they would be Zoom meetings.
okay.
great.
Sounds good.
Even though we said that, something just dawned on me.
Uh-oh.
Might want to think about between now and next time about Thursday night instead of Friday night, because people go to private parties, private holiday parties in December on Friday night. Just a thought.
I'm at your disposal.
That just means people have our own holiday parties.
There you go. There you go. I can bring some of my working balls and some of the balls and
Those things are just
like the mid balls.
very scary. This, in my ADA report was working on the dates, but I was also wondering, does anybody have any other structural challenges that they run into that are in the city of Charleston, the way Ron was talking about up on Morrison Drive?
Yes, so waterfront part, the gravel around the pineapple,
Yeah.
it sort of just gets sort of eroded or
And not good for your chair.
yeah, so like back over the summer, I guess it was last year sometime, but I was down there and it was hard to get up to like up onto the pineapple sidewalk area to take pictures and stuff. So I don't know how much maintenance gets done with gravel and everything.
And I would say Brittle Bank Park, if they could dig up the asphalt that the grass is growing over. It's there, it's just, they just let it.
Is it all the sidewalk? Is there one
There's
place?
clearly a path there, but the grass is
Yeah.
growing over.
I've been to the Brittle Bay sidewalk.
Now, I just love Brittle Bank Park, and I get that we can't use it all the time because of the water intrusion. But it really is just, that's a beautiful pier. It's beautiful.
You do realize that 50 years ago, that was a dump.
Oh, I know. I mean, my mother can tell you whole stories. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why, that's, well, I
My
know
wife grew
that's
up on the Citadel, so
I wish, I
they
mean,
used to play the dump.
we're on the public right now, so, but yes, well, hi.
And if you look at the old maps of the city, all of that area, in 1968, I went to Crosby Seafood in a boat,
Oh, my. Well,
and now you have public sitting there.
well, I will say, but it's a beautiful, it's just a lovely pier, and, my dog likes it there, so. But I did notice that there. But I'm sure there are other areas as well.
Do we have anything else for the good of the order?
Would you like to hear about Adelia?
Yes,
Oh, we're in it now.
I want it. We're out here. This Adelia, her experience,
Yes.
her secret shopper experience.
Exactly. So this is the 5th shelter that I've gone to. And part of the main problem with the whole Adelia experience was the lack of communication. And I kept like a little list of dates and times about things happening. So I'm just going to run down real quick. On August 29th, the mayor had a 4:30 press conference talking about Adelia coming, talking about there was finally, after a couple of days of talking about the storm coming, about the huge storm surge, about the blue moon and, you know, the moon, the stars, the planets all aligning, which could have meant real flooding. And there was concern about that. And so, well, make sure you have your plans and all of that. Well, I live in a part of West Ashley. Literally my apartment building butts right against the marsh. It's low-lying. An ant pees and we flood. So this was going to be, for the safety of my chair and for power, I probably need to go to a shelter. They didn't know how it was going to hit, but better safe than sorry. So finally on the 29th, the mayor had a press conference. Yep, we're going to open a shelter. It's going to be at work camp. What does that mean? So I go to the city website. There is no shelter listed or information listed. I go to the South Carolina Emergency Management Division on the same day, nothing listed. That same day on the 29th, the governor declared a state of emergency ahead of the storm because of flooding concerns. Still nothing. The next day, it wasn't until almost noon before finally, in the morning, there was still no listing on either city or the South Carolina Emergency Management. Finally, I called city services about shelter information. I was told to call the county. I called the county and they said 2 shelters would be open, one at Aldersgate Church and one at the Leeds Avenue, the old jail. That's what meant by work camp. Work camp you couldn't look up. So vocabulary, clarity. When I called, they said there was no, they gave me a phone number for Aldersgate. I called them. There was no answer. I tried several different extensions, finally left a message asking for information. For the Leeds Avenue, they didn't have a number available. So I called Telluride about arranging for a ride, and the county doesn't, it was told the county doesn't arrange that. I would have to call Telluride directly because they weren't sure when the bus service would stop. I called Telluride. They weren't sure when the service would stop. They didn't know where the shelters were or if they could provide rides, and they told me to check back. So then I called the Red Cross. All I got was an answer service and left a message, never heard anything back. By 1 o'clock, ABC News lists just Leeds Avenue. I called the county back about accessibility. They don't have about the county, the Leeds Avenue shelter. They had no idea about accessibility, about electricity, about generators or backpack.
Wait,
And-
go back and tell me who didn't know that last thing.
That was the county emergency management.
Okay.
Okay. So they said they would call and check. And when I asked about transportation, I was told, quote, "We're not arranging transportation at this time. You would need to arrange that yourself." So they called back about 10 minutes later to confirm accessibility at the Leeds Avenue location. I then called at 2 to call Telluride about making reservations and about how long Telluride was running and about getting to Leeds. And I was told, "We're not handling that. I'll transfer you to my supervisor." I was given a voicemail. I left a message asking for a call back about arranging a ride. About 2 hours after that, Aldersgate Church called back. Now they said they were taken off the list because they can't open the shelter due to building storm range rating. So now there's only one shelter. I called the bell, still didn't receive any information, called the county back again, asking about a ride, explaining that I was being bounced between them and Telluride. The county called back to give me 2 phone numbers to Telluride that I already had and was told to call them. I finally called Telluride back again and got through to dispatch and was finally told by one of the dispatch workers that it's not a mandatory evacuation, only a tropical storm. So CARTA doesn't provide transport unless it's a mandatory evacuation. So I then explained about living in a low-lying area, et cetera, concerned about surge flooding. She called back about a half hour later. She arranged for a ride for me to get down. And it wasn't until 2 days later that the Post and Courier finally had an article that outlined evacuation process and about CARTA not providing evacuation to shelter transportation unless it's declared a mandatory evacuation. Long and short of it, it's getting information and getting it clearly, getting the people who are manning the phones to know the answers, because I literally spent an entire day and a half just trying to get straight answers and information. When I got down to the jail, I have to say that was an unusual experience. It was a pet-friendly shelter. There was no Red Cross personnel. It was only DSS and personnel from the Sheriff's Department. We literally were put in 2 people to a jail cell to sleep. They had cots.
Oh my, I know what you're talking about now. Oh my goodness.
Yep. And they did, I was told originally by the county that they would not be providing food, just water. So I brought some stuff from home and they end up getting some deli sandwiches and some pizza. So there was food there.
You were in a cell?
I was in a cell.
Oh my
Now,
goodness.
but the door was open and it wasn't locked, but it was an interesting, and there was myself and another woman, and she had a cot. I slept in my chair. But literally, if you can imagine a concrete cell with the wooden bed, it made into the wall. For everybody that was at the shelter, I think they said they had a census of about 50 or 60. There were like just 3 bathrooms. One of them was kept in reserve for staff. So,
Was
I
the
mean,
bathroom accessible?
I'm sorry?
Was the bathroom accessible or
The,
usable?
the bathroom is usable. What was interesting, there was literally only 2 bathrooms at the front, one being held back for staff. I never got into the one that was in the front, because one of the sheriff officers looked at me and she goes, "Let me bring in," and she opened one in the back for me. And then that became available to people as well. My understanding from some other folk was that the one in the front got really nasty in terms of the conditions. So I was grateful it was there, but then they made it very clear everybody has to be out by 10 o'clock the next morning. And it was quite the process to arrange for Telluride to come get me, to bring me home. So there's some glitches around here where communication between people, if the mayor has a press conference and he says that there's going to be a shelter at the work camp, what's the address? And that needs to go on the city work website.
They need to tell people they're going to be in cells. And they need to, shelters, you're supposed to bring your own food, but yeah. But that is so fascinating.
Have you asked for a meeting with the mayor to explain this to him face to face?
Excuse me?
Have you asked for a meeting with the mayor to explain to him face to face?
No, I have not. I wanted to bring it to this meeting first.
Personal opinion, that's what I would do.
But he's not in charge of shelters. I think that this is.
No, he's not in charge of shelters, but he's in charge of getting stuff done.
Well, I think I would like to talk to Ben Elmquist
That's how I would talk to Ben. Yeah.
and start there. It's just, again, part of it is communication. And I was particularly focused because they kept talking about how bad the flooding could potentially get. Because it was the moon, it was the storm surge, it was the timing of the storm, and it got pretty bad downtown. Luckily, it did not get as bad by me, but it did lap the bottom of my wheelchair ramp. So it was probably good that I went, because I mean, my neighbors were saying, well, we'll carry you upstairs. And it's like, I can't leave my chair down there, you know, and losing power. So anyway, so that's just a quickie. It's, again, lack of communication. It needs to be mounted. Then there was also the thing with city services, because city employees were being let go early that next day. So there wasn't always somebody at the phone. So it just needs to be a clearer system.
Thank you.
I think the mayor still needs to know about it.
Oh, yeah,
I think Ben will tell them. I feel sure.
I would go to the mayor. And what you could do is set up a meeting with the mayor and Ben at the same time.
True. Yeah.
I'm telling you, in my experience, unless you get the guy whose belly button you can push to understand the problem will be there for a long time.
Well, part of the thing is, again, the left hand doesn't always know what the right hand is doing. It's not, we need to find a way to coordinate communication.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely agreed.
So anyway, that's experience number 5.
Okay.
And if the transportation hadn't showed up at 10 o'clock, you're already in jail, so.
And
what are they gonna do?
my
Put you in
thought was,
jail
what are they
again?
gonna do? Lock you up? I mean,
Well, it's the old jail, you know, so that's where they've used as a pet-friendly shelter in the past. One thing I have to say is Kristen Graziano showed up at about 10 o'clock that night. So I give her kudos for that she came to check to see how things were going, you know, and all.
Very smart. Well, I made some notes in it. I'm not sure that they're accurate, but I made some notes so that we can
Interesting story.
include that part. The stories are always good.
You need to write a book on that.
Yeah, my shelter experiences or the storms and
My life in the shelters.
Yeah.
well, it was so funny because I texted my family and I said, you're never going to believe where, because they were concerned for me when they were hearing about Adelia coming through. And so I said, don't worry, I'm at the shelter, but you're never going to believe I'm in jail. And so then explained, and then my nephew texted back and says, we always knew you'd be doing hard time.
I would have just sent them a picture of you in jail. Not saying.
Well, it sounds like you might have gotten out cheap too. If there are enough county officers around to help you out, you probably didn't have to hire quite so many people as you usually do. Did anybody have any adverse effects from that storm? Okay. I appreciate you sharing.
All right.
We done?
So I guess we'll meet next month on, I already put my stuff away.
On the 27th.
Yeah, the 27th.
Should we come in costume?
Why
Yeah.
not?
Choice.
I am not coming in costume. Most of them aren't accessible for me.
You could come in jailhouse costume.
You could come dressed as an ADA coordinator.
I could do that. You're right. A few more physical therapy outfits, please.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you all.
All right, we'll see you all next month.
all right, thank you, sir.
Enjoy the cool weather, folks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Have a safe month.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Maria.
Hopefully we'll have a
Bye.
I got five.
It's great.
I don't know.
Is it really?
Would that be better to do a split screen?
Maybe, because, I mean, I pointed out whenever you guys were talking, but you can't really see you. And so I mean, because